On today's show, we'll be talking about how all of us can bring fresh knowledge into our lives. I'm going to be talking with Rob Bogue as he and I talk about reading, learning, and knowledge. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madelyn Blair, and this is Unlocked, a show all about unlocking the resilient leader in you. I speak to many audiences, but the one I love the most are those of you who are watching this show right now. You are loyal, so I must be doing something of value for you. And I want to make that even better. Tell me your support by clicking the thumbs up button, subscribing, or send me an email to madelyn@madelynblair.com. My commitment to you is to keep improving this show. Thank you. In 2010, I published a book called Riding the Current: How to Deal with the Daily Deluge of Data. To write this book, I interviewed about 100 people from all over the world, from different careers, different socioeconomic levels, and people spanning 65 years. The youngest was 18 and the oldest was 83. I asked them how they kept current. None of them said they could keep current. What they did say was that they could bring fresh knowledge into their lives all the time. As I say in chapter 1 of the book, they were people who recognize that knowledge must be refreshed constantly with new information, new insights, and new ideas. And they used surprisingly different techniques for doing so. With solid foundations in their topics, they still remain open, allowing new information to seep in, new insights to bloom, new perspectives to be had. There are several reasons for writing this book, but the one that drove me originally was that I am committed to learning. Early in the book, I talk about creating the right environment for learning. It begins with allowing curiosity to exist and to expand from simple things like making a room safe for a 2-year-old that allows them to explore to their heart's content, to more subtle things like managers who open their doors to staff and open their minds to the ideas that their staff bring, even when they're different from the norm. Some of us enjoy learning in conversation with others. Some of us enjoy learning by themselves, personal experiment, or just reading a book. Regardless of our preferences or our profession, virtually all of us find ourselves reading books, manuals, articles, blogs, papers. Today, we'll be talking about really deepening reading to enhance the learning that can happen. We'll be joined by someone who has developed remarkable techniques for doing exactly this. Robert Bogue has led change projects for 3 decades, and I'm going to bring him on while I talk about him. Robert, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you.
Let me tell them more about you. As a recovering technologist, I love that. He's changed the way people work as he changed the technology. He's the author of 28 books. Okay, I'm impressed with that. And has been a Microsoft MVP for 21 years. His work has transformed corporations, governments, and quasi-government organizations. It's not about the technology, but he leverages his strength in technology and human systems to create change that is sustainable and transformative for organizations of all sizes and shapes. I've known Rob for many years, and every time I have listened to him speak or had a conversation with him, I learn something new or I gain a new insight. I think you're going to be blown away. by what we're going to talk about today. So, Rob, again, welcome.
Thank you,
And
Madelyn. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to come in and have a conversation.
thank you. Well, I've written the book about how adults keep fresh. I've talked about that. Fresh knowledge.
Yeah.
The motivation had to do with the desire to help people learn. You see, for me, learning is something that I seek out constantly. I can be in the dullest lecture and still, instead of nodding off, I'll look around and I'll study the audience and see how I can learn about others' process dullness. I mean, you can always learn.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. In fact, I've been known to say, if I'm not learning, I'm not living. And I really meant it. Rob, what was the journey that took you to come to value learning?
So, I mean, like most people, right? We have the grade school and junior high and high school sort of experience. And I remember a good friend and mentor of mine who was talking to me about how I was different. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, You just see things differently. You want to learn. You're digging in. You're pulling it in." And where in other ways he was having to kind of push it at some other students, and that sort of stuck with me. I very early got into book writing and editing. What's not in my bio is I've edited over another 100 books.
Wow,
Um, and that is a process of learning. It got started because
absolutely.
I was asked, "Would you like to do editing?" And I'm like, "I don't think you understand. I don't know where the commas go." And they said, "No, no, no, no. We want you to make sure that it's right." There's a lot of technical editing and development editing, and I said, "Okay, sure, but to do that process, you have to learn it and then verify it." Um, and that was, several years of my life. And then more recently, about 12 years ago or so, I came to the decision to read a book every single week and write a review. And I think that's really where kind of there became this acceleration,
Mhm.
because every book would have references to other books and other ideas and thoughts. And then I started creating a list. And well, honestly, now I don't know when I'll ever or if I'll ever finish the list of reading that I've got.
Isn't that great that there's so much out there that even in our lifetime, we can't do it all?
Yeah.
I think it's great. Keeps us interested in life. That's another way to think about it.
Absolutely. And, a lot of folks, so my reading is all nonfiction. I say all nonfiction. Occasionally something slips in, but it's basically nonfiction. And people are like, "Well, why don't you read fiction?" I'm like, life is interesting enough.
This is interesting, Rob. I used to think the same way. And then I met Bob Sadler. He was one of the people I
Mhm.
interviewed for the book.
Mhm.
It turns out that one of the things that Bob always reads is what he calls good fiction.
Hmm.
He said, Madelyn, in good fiction, you can learn more about human dynamics than anything else. And I have to admit, the man was right. So occasionally, like
Yeah.
you, I make sure there's some fiction that comes in, but it has to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oftentimes, my husband and I read to each other a lot, and we've agreed that nothing will be read out loud to each other unless there are really interesting characters.
Mhm.
That, of course, is where the interesting is. Okay, now I wonder though if you would talk a little bit more about the relationship between reading and learning, because
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on that, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think first, you opened us up with there are lots of different ways to learn, right? And we can learn in conversation, and that is a wonderful way to learn. What I know about the way that the human brain processes language is that we speak at roughly 150 words per minute, and we can process somewhere between 450 and 600. And so, if you're listening to another person, you've got to be looking into the dynamics of that. What reading does for me is it removes that slowdown from the whatever it is 450 words to the 150. And so it's sort of like watching videos on high speed, right? Like I could get more quicker.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's not always good, right? Because you're like, well, but did you retain it all?
Yeah.
And I think this is the crux of your question is, Like, so you've got reading, it's your eyes passing across the white and black, or you have learning, which is how do you take it in. And I think I very quickly recognized people who said, "Oh yeah, I've read that book," and couldn't tell me a single concept from it.
Right.
Um, and so I made I made a process. So I will read, I highlight, I review my highlights, and I write a blog post. And that process for me requires that I process at the reading level as I'm doing my notes, as I'm writing. It requires that I integrate whatever it is that I read into my understanding, my knowledge, however you want to frame it. But I don't really have a choice because the process is a forcing function.
I like that. The process is a forcing function. Yeah, that makes sense. You have to tick off. Have I read it? Have I highlighted it? Have I reviewed the highlights? Have I then summarized? Ah, yes. And also the act of writing is such a learning technique. Students do not understand that when I say to them, that's where your learning is going to occur when you write, because you have to articulate what you know. Okay, well, speaking of which, knowledge. Uh, if I have time, if I read something and I've got no time to integrate it in what I already know, it's gone, just as you suggested. Uh, but I'm also wondering, is knowledge created by the act of integrating it? Or is it what we already know? Or is it something else? Talk about knowledge.
Yeah. So I think this latest push, when I started reading, it actually started with this concept of pearl growing. And so in knowledge management circles, that is, you start with a small fact and you start surrounding it and surrounding it and surrounding it, right? So the oyster, piece of sand, keeps coating it with saliva, ick, but it creates a pearl, right? And that's sort of the way it works. So when I say I write a review of the book, that's actually probably not fair. In fact, I've had a couple of authors tell me, "You didn't write a review of the book. You wrote what you thought of the book." I'm like, "Well, that's sort of a review." But the point he was trying to make was, I'm connecting it to other concepts. And it's a very active process for me. I'm going, okay, well, I read this over here, but how does that relate to this other thing in this other place? And that, for me, being able to connect it is the knowledge. Because as you well know, most of what we know is tacit knowledge. It's not written down. We couldn't articulate it, right? But the way that we access that tacit knowledge is through relational links. Well, I'm basically building them, right? I'm making an active process out of, I'm linking this to this so that later, if this comes up, I can come get to the other pieces.
You're
And
building
that
you're dropping breadcrumbs.
yeah, I'm dropping breadcrumbs, and hopefully there aren't any birds around to eat them.
Yeah. I actually see a different vision in my mind about knowledge. It's not just linkage. It's melding. And maybe that's a better word.
Sure.
This often happens when I read from one topic, one discipline to another. I may be interested in management, but I'm reading something on gardening, and all of a sudden I'm drawing processes from gardening and I'm applying them in management processes. So it becomes a melding. Okay, that's just how I see it, but I like yours as well.
No, and I think so. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it. So if I were to grab from David Boehm, right? He talks about emerging, right? And that concept of emergence that you can get out of gardening, you can certainly bring to management and leadership.
Yeah.
And you start to ask the question, where's the line between them, right? In terms of that emergence concept.
Yep.
Is it sit in the gardening side, or does it sit in the side of, well, I'm leading people? And the answer is both and neither. It's together.
Correct. Yeah. Oh gosh, I never thought about that in relationship. I mean, I know boom, but I never saw it that way. That's excellent, because it suddenly it becomes the challenge of what is light. Is it a wave or is it a particle?
Right.
It's both.
Right.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Rob. See, I
No,
always get something from you. Always.
glad. We're done now, right? You got your thing.
No, no,
Well,
no,
let's continue the conversation.
no, no. No, there's another question or a few more questions. One is you've talked about your process. Why don't you expand on that?
Yeah, certainly. So let's do electronic first, right? So I mostly read electronically, 99.9 some percent, right? And I know there are a lot of people that are like, no, but I love the feel of a really good book, and me too. But the reason I'm reading is to learn. The reason that I'm reading is to really understand the content. And to do that, I need this process of read it, highlight, make notes, because even electronically in the Kindle, I can type in a little note. Then that gets pulled out. I put it into Microsoft OneNote. And then I re-highlight the super important stuff. Sometimes write a couple of extra notes, do some other things. And then it's from that I will turn around and start writing. The writing process itself a lot of times starts with me pulling out key concepts from the book, stuff that I'm like, I really know that I need to talk about this. And then it's reordering them and bridging them and kind of putting the pieces together before kind of a main writing pass. What's interesting about what's interesting about this process is I end up with something that's pretty holistic. And I think, Madelyn, you've got a picture of a screenshot of my notes from my OneNote. Yep, there you go. So there's one. And so this is an example. I just pulled it out of random. What you'll see there is I last accessed this on 2019 and August 24th of 2019. And so I know when I read the book. All the yellow stuff is important stuff. The green stuff is super important stuff. The color that you don't see here, two colors you don't see here that I use very frequently. One is cyan, and that's a book reference. That's a, hey, you may want to go buy this book and read it. And then the other one is a sort of light magenta or light pink, where there is a not or a negative in it. And what I wanted to make sure I didn't do was skim over something and get the wrong thing. So I highlight those as a note to myself that you need to make sure you really fully understand this, because somewhere embedded in this is a not. So that's the basic process for something that is completely electronic.
I'm not on the screen, but I think you can hear me.
Yes.
I find a couple of things really that impress me. One is your use of color. So often people think that color is not important in this, and yet it carries information. Just you don't have to say a word.
Yep.
I know now. If I look, I see. The yellow stuff is what you thought initially was important, but that green one, anticipating consequences, understanding interactions, that's really important.
Yep.
And then you have those other two.
Yep.
I may actually borrow that color scheme. Why reinvent it? It's there now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So the intent behind the color coding, and also you'll notice I've got some bolding happening and a couple of other kind of minor things, is to make it skimmable. So I can go back. Somebody can go, like if you and I were preparing for conversation, you said, I want to talk about critical knowledge transfer. I would pull up my notes. I would skim read the green. Then I would skim read the yellow. And that would give me, in most cases, it gives me a fairly good understanding of what the book was talking about. It's enough to connect to the existing breadcrumbs. And I can have a coherent, if not great, conversation about a book in, 2 or 3 minutes of prep.
I know that there are people who are watching who are saying to themselves, well, why don't you just go to ChatGPT and ask it to do all these things? But to me, there's something different and more. So, Rob, I'll let you describe that.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, when I started this, ChatGPT didn't exist. But more importantly, we have an overblown expectation of what large language models, ChatGPT, can do. We think that it can do deep reasoning, and it simply can't. It's good at summarizing text, and in certain scenarios, it's good at summarizing text. It is really bad at making connections between different topics. They're too different for it to draw the relationships. So for me, even now, I've been working with it, I've been trying to get it to save me some work. And in a lot of cases, I simply can't do it.
Well, there's another thing that I like about this also, and that is that you immediately know the reference, the
Mhm.
precise source.
Yep.
And I think it's so easy, if you don't recognize the value of that, to use AI to get a summary and think that everything is valid. I've stopped doing that now. What I
Mhm.
do now is I ask for things, but I always say to whatever the AI is, and give me the references.
Yep.
So I end up reading the references. And
Yep.
that's not a bad idea to use AI
Okay.
to go find the references for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they would call that is grounding, right? So they call
Hmm.
that grounding into this resources, and I always ask for it. I never take insert LLMs here's perspective without saying um, provide references.
Yeah.
So it's the two words I give it. So
Yep. Okay. Now this is for when you're working with Kindle electronic versions.
yep, that's electronic.
Is there more?
Well, so um, well, maybe let's talk about what happens when I get a paper book,
Ah,
because
okay.
as I'm working backwards, in a lot of cases, I'm reading sources of stuff. So, for instance, I've got a book that is a recent book for me, and it's How Minds Change. And it's a book that was recommended by someone that I like and respect, and so I read the book, and then the book itself has lots of references, and so I will go back and I will start to read those references, but some of them are not available electronically; they're only available on paper. And so I think you've got a picture of the scanning tool that I asked my office manager to use, and so we'll take a book and we use this scanner to scan the book, put it into PDF, OCR it. So now I have a PDF that is more than just images; it's got the text in it as well. And when I do that, I'm using a different device. I use my tablet versus my Kindle, but I take it and I highlight it because you can highlight in PDF. You can make notes, all the same things, and then that gets exported. There's a service called SomeNotes.net that I use that will extract all of my highlights. I hand those off to my office manager for a little bit of cleanup because the OCR isn't perfect. And then we get something that's similar to the other, but it has a slightly different flavor for it. And I think you've got an example of that, which is Arthur Shelley's book, um, where the formatting is just a bit different in my notes, but fundamentally it's the same thing. I'm still highlighting in yellow, I'm still highlighting in green. Format wise, it looks a little different than the other, but it is fundamentally the same, right? It's fundamentally it's the text that came from the book. It's yellow highlights, it's green highlights, and the other colors. And so I can take something that is in paper form and get it into an electronic form that I can continue to do the process on and continue to integrate that knowledge. Now, there's two things that I have to admit. Um, the first is sometimes when the book is not expensive, we will cut the spine off of it to do
Hmm.
the scanning because it's quicker.
Yeah. Yep.
And I dislike that a lot, but I also appreciate that I'm preserving the contents for the future.
Hmm.
Um, and the second thing is I would prefer to read it in paper form, but I don't, in part because of the knowledge which I said earlier, but also if I'm traveling, I can't carry 10 books. I can't carry, the library that I have with me. I've got over 150 books in my backlog at the moment.
Oh, those are the ones you have not read yet, right?
Those are the ones that I have purchased and I
Yeah.
haven't read yet.
Yeah.
There's no way you could get on an airplane with 150 books.
No. I'm currently reading Gödel Escher Bach, which I'm sure you know. It is a very interesting, for my audience, I will tell you, it is a very interesting book. You have to be slightly crazy to read it, but that's okay. But it's really thick. It's really heavy. And that means it'll never go with me anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the process on the, for a physical book, it'll get converted. It runs through the process. I ultimately end up with something that is fundamentally the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do the same fundamental writing process.
Mm-hmm. And these notes that you're showing me here,
mm-hmm.
These are all in a large database? Are they in Word? What's the platform?
So they're in Microsoft OneNote. OneNote is the note-taking software where it's all together in one quote-unquote notebook. The last time I printed that notebook, it was several thousand pages of just notes.
I believe that. I started with Evernote, which was, I thought, in the original format. I'll try to be calm about this. In the original format, it was wildly successful for me because you could put any form into it, and then you could highlight it, you could play with it, you could add comments in it, you could do exactly what you've done here with colors, etc. But the other thing was you could easily do a full text search. You could look for certain things. It was wildly useful to me. I have over 6,000 items in Evernote, and it has grown not in size, it has grown in features. And now the features get in the way of me using Evernote as a quick source. And it was what I always did before speech or for writing a paper. You would just go in and look for certain tags, and zingo, you had everything that you needed. It may take you 2 hours to read it, but that's okay. That's nothing compared to not having it.
Right.
So that's one I do, but I have another form that I use, and I'm sitting here with great envy, by the way. This form is just a Word document, literally.
Yep.
And we would bring in a book into the library, and I think that one has about 600 or 800, I don't remember exactly. And we record the necessary information so that you can find the book somewhere on the bookshelves.
Yep.
And then there is a short paragraph that gives you the highlights from the book.
Yep.
And now I can see, although that's incredibly useful to me, this slight addition of adding color in it would really be beneficial. And it's a very low maintenance cost. I mean, I'm writing less than a half a page. So it's very little input to have an immediate reference to when I'm looking for topics of learning or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. And I have my OneNote filed. I know we can't get to this easily, but I have my OneNote filed by folder. So I have a folder for learning, and I have a folder for knowledge management, and I have a folder for innovation, and it isn't perfect because it's a single hierarchy. But it also allows me to move into an area, skim down the titles, and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That was important.
Yeah.
That had good insight, something like that.
Rob, I'm going to take this off screen because I think we have finished with it.
Yep.
Now I need to get us to where they can see us.
Hey, we're back.
We're back. That's right. I think we've talked a lot about reading, etc. To me, it's the first step to learning. And maybe you've already covered this, but I want us to really dig as deep as possible.
Yeah.
How do you learn from your reading? Learn, not just take all these highlights. How do you keep it? Well, we've talked about how you keep it organized now, and all that. But let's talk about learning per se.
Yeah. So let me take us a slightly different path, and there is a reason I'm going in this direction. So I mentioned that I'd edited 100 books, and one of the things that you kind of learned to see was when an author intentionally started writing vaguely about a topic because they didn't understand it, or they didn't understand it well. They didn't have the core concepts. They didn't understand the principles behind it. They could tell you, hey, do these 5 things. But what they couldn't do was really articulate the principles that underlie those 5 steps, right? And so when I'm writing the reviews, and that's where the learning's occurring, as we've said, right? When I'm writing those reviews, I'm intentionally finding those hard spots, but not to criticize the author, but rather to say, this is something the author struggled to learn. Is it something I've already learned? Can I integrate it? Where's the gap? Where's the, where are the challenges? We were talking about how minds change. And so I'll give you an example from this one. So one of the spots I landed in was ego defenses. And so people don't change their mind because they feel threatened, but it's not that they're physically threatened, but rather their ego is threatened. Their self-image, basically. And there was a book. It was a big red book and lots of pages, and it was 22 major and 26 minor ego defenses, right? And I had never finished reading it because it was a book that is dense. But I'm like, no, wait, for this book review to work, then I really need to make sure that I 100% understand the ego and its defenses, right? If I'm going to learn how to change minds, I need to know what are the things I can expect the mind to do to defend itself. What should I expect that the ego will do to defend itself? And so that's one of actually about 5 of the underlying books that this How Minds Change book started getting me to work on, because I wanted to know it. I wanted to know it to the level I could teach it, right? And sort of the writing is somewhat that, it's somewhat teaching, but it's really sense making and understanding. But for me, the way that it converts from reading to learning is, how do I make sure that those concepts, those bits that the author may have glossed over because they didn't understand it, or in this case, because there's a big topic, and they only had so many pages, how do I make sure that I understand all those things? And that's sort of the thinking. It's the way that I look at what I'm doing, not so much the action I'm doing.
I think. So, go ahead. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you really said it when you said you need to understand the principles underneath of things. And when you said that, I thought to myself, that's why I love listening to Rob Bogue. Because I mean that most sincerely, because there are so many books out there that I call pop books. They just give you the surface.
Yep.
And that's fun. But does the author, as you say, does the author really understand? Now, I hate to admit this, but to me, if the author wrote simply, which I think is okay, there has to be some way that they can articulate something that gives you a basis to believe this statement. And when they can't do that, I discard the book.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that, because I understand that.
Yep.
I want underneath.
Einstein said, explain it as simple as possible, no simpler, right? Like you've got to find simple, because it is in simple that people can understand. But when you become too simple, people don't understand. And so for me, that's an important bit. So let me walk through an example.
Sure.
So picked up a book called Switch. Dan and Chip Heath, the pair of brothers that write together a lot. They've written lots of other things besides Switch. They really picked up on something that Jonathan Haidt wrote very early in his career, and it's an elephant rider path model. Super love it. To this day, it is the mental model for decision making.
Say that again. The elephant
rider path.
Rider, as in RIDER?
Yeah, as in sitting on top of the elephant.
Okay.
And I'll come back and explain it in just a second.
Okay.
So elephant rider path. So it's switch. That actually Jonathan Haidt wrote about that first in a book called The Happiness Hypothesis. And so then I go read that. And so like it is the thing I love about that model is it's very principle based. It's not do this X thing and you'll get Y result. So the model is super simple. The idea is who's in charge. You have a little rider, right? And we call this our rational rider. It's our reason, our consciousness, our ego, that sitting on a big emotional elephant. The big emotional elephant is, as you would expect, quite powerful. We don't ever think of it as the person in charge or the part of the system that's in charge. And then you have the path, and the path is just the defaults that are going on. So the thing is, and I've sort of set you up for, the real person in charge is the elephant. It's always our emotions. Now, the thing is, the elephant's also lazy. The elephant mostly doesn't care. But if you ever want to get something done, if you really want something to go, motivate the elephant. And so when we talk to people, we talk about reason and rationale and blah, 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 blah. And we forget that we don't make decisions that way.
Yes.
Right. Later in Haidt's work, he talks about the rider as the press secretary. The elephant has made the decision. The rider has to justify it.
Yeah.
And so one little story that I tell folks when I'm explaining this, I'm like, I don't have a lot of elephants in Indiana, but what I do have is a dad who was a horseman, and I mean 4-H drill team horseman. So my great uncle had a farm. We went out to my great uncle's farm. He had a horse that wasn't completely broke. My dad says, I can ride that horse. And my dad, to his credit, could ride that horse. Didn't matter if it was broken or not. Didn't matter. But the thing that taught me the elephant rider path lesson that I didn't quite put together until later was my dad rides out into the training ring, and B, the horse's name, was having none of it, bucking and just trying to get rid of him. And it was like watching chaos in motion. And then my dad rides through the fence, not around it, not over it, through the fence. And I thought to myself later, I know who was in control. The horse was always in control. The horse was always in control, and my dad was trying to assert that he was in control. And I know that because we spent the next 4 hours fixing that fence.
Oh, what a great story. But now I have a new model. I have heard about the elephant rider path, but I hadn't really put it into my conscious mind. Now I will.
Well, now you have a story that you won't be able to get out of your mind.
Exactly. And I've had some wonderful guests on the show talking about how horses really interact with human beings.
Mm-hmm.
They are completely at the emotional level, and they read your emotions. It's very exciting.
I love horses. My dad had taught me a great affinity for them. I love them. They're amazing animals. And they're also in charge.
Yeah. Well, they're what? 2,000 pounds?
Roughly. Yeah, unless you're getting into Belgians and something bigger.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, they're a ton. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're not going to argue with that. Wow.
Not successfully, anyway.
Well, I remember, and I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but it's just the one that pops in my mind. My daughter had a horse for a while. Well, she had horses for a long time, but this was when she was older and she had my grandson.
Yeah.
So we went to visit the horse, and the horse is out of the stall for the first time in a while, and so it's very frisky, running around the pasture. Well, I had been around horses because my daughter had horses for many years.
Yes.
No big deal. I just stood there calmly. Well, my poor grandson, who had never encountered this, immediately ran behind me. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. And indeed, the horse ran right toward me and just went calmly right around me. Yep. So they just read emotions so beautifully, and they are in control.
Yeah.
All right. But it's such a great And now it comes back to this looking at things from different disciplines. This
Mhm.
is a great one to come back to. How does this apply then when you're trying to get managers to do things? I mean, how many times have I told executives, your rational decisions have lots of emotion in them?
Mhm.
In fact, you can't make a decision without emotion. And it's very hard to convince them of that.
You, even Mann and Janice, this is 1970s, were writing about the role of emotion in decision making.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't new.
This is not new. I know.
We just haven't figured out how to read it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we have to just get a horse or something.
Yeah, get a horse, you'll learn.
Okay. I want us to assume that we're working with a 20 something.
Yep.
And what you described, and I haven't described, but I've just sort of mentioned, is quite labor intensive.
Mhm.
How do we say to them, look, this is how you should begin your career in regard to keeping it with constant fresh knowledge?
Yeah. So I think, shifting for just a second to, written 28 books. I didn't write 28 books at one time. I didn't write them all in a year. I didn't write them in a single decade.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote them over time.
Yeah.
My advice to a 20 something is start with something. Start a practice, start a habit, I'm going to read 12 books a year. That's one a month, or 6 books a year. That's one every 2, right? And this is the habit that you start, and it happens, right? Like you're like, nope, this is the minimum bar for what I'm going to do. And I don't care if it's 1 book, 3, 6, 12. It doesn't, that's actually not the point. The point is the habit. And once you have created the habit, the rest will flow. Because I've got 750 or more book reviews now out there. I couldn't have done that in a year or 10, right? Because it's slightly over 12 now. Um, it, you just do it and you keep doing it, and it becomes muscle memory.
Mm.
And then you get the rewards, you get the fruits out of nurturing the tree of knowledge for a decade or a dozen years or whatever it becomes.
Mm-hmm. You use the term habit. When I'm
Yep.
working with people on resilience, I always talk to them about practices.
Yep.
And
Sure.
you're right. You want to have some specific clear behavior that allows you to say, I am moving on the path.
Yep.
And
Yep.
as you do, and I love the term muscle memory.
Yep.
There's all my neuropers people say, no, it's all in the brain. I said, well, it's okay. You can think of it that way, but I'll think of it as muscle because it's almost as if your brain doesn't have to consciously think about it. You just move into it.
Yeah. Kahneman, system 1, system 2, or you can look at Anders Ericsson and his work on excellence at peak and how it gets re-encoded in their brain. Yeah, I mean, whether you want to say that the neurons are actually in the muscle or in the brain, I actually don't care. The fact of the matter is you don't engage higher level processing, and it makes it quicker and faster and better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. When you don't get that executive function in there,
Right. Gets in the way.
it gets in the way, and it takes a lot of energy.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. All right. I have one more question for you. We talked about writing, and that was an important way to learn.
Yeah.
I am writing a children's book on a very complex topic, and I won't tell you what the topic is because that's not important to the story. What's important to the story is I wrote it, and it was not sufficient, and so I've got to go back and write it again. Have you tried writing a children's book?
I have not tried writing a children's book. I don't think I'm up to the challenge. It's the old saw. I would have written you a shorter note if I had time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Distilling, that level of distilling,
Mm-hmm.
that, I talked about principles, but you almost have to get past principles to elementals.
Yes.
And then communicate those in ways that talk to the elephant.
Mm-hmm.
More than we think about talking to the elephant with adults. I we have grandchildren now, so I might try it, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm up for it.
Well, Rob, thank you. You've actually made my day
Good.
because I've written so many things. I mean, only 5 books, but lots and lots of papers.
Yeah.
And I thought, children's book, 500 words. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
But and you've articulated it so well that you have to be aware that the writer knows the principles. Yeah,
Mhm.
really good. Well, we are just about out of time, but I do want to give you a moment to say some final words to our amazing audience.
Keep doing it. Whatever it is, whatever the path is, whatever you feel like is your expression of you, just keep doing it. And I can tell you, and I know, Madelyn, you've had similar experiences where things have gotten in your way and you've wondered, is any of this matter? And, my answer is yeah, of course it matters. But you just don't know how it matters yet. You just don't know what the impact is yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is not written, right? The book's not closed. The pages are still blank.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Keep doing it. That's right. Well, Rob Bogue, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Every now and then, there is something that changes how I think about the world. Grounds for Thought is a place where I talk about these moments so that you can explore the meaning for yourself. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about the book, Riding the Current. Let me get it up where you can see it. There it is. Yes, it's by me. This book is filled with ideas, strategies, tactics, roles, and frameworks to help you build a way to manage information as it flows into your life like a tsunami. Every chapter has lists of strategies, examples of how to use them, and lessons learned. Some chapters have optional advanced topics to consider. Here, I'm going to focus on just one area. Each of us has a preferred way of learning. I personally prefer to talk with others to learn. The interaction of ideas, different information, conflicting opinions, all contribute to how I actually integrate the new information I want to learn so that it becomes knowledge that I can use to act or to make a decision. My book offers many ways to process new information, including 3 ways to bring others into conversation to help you process and learn. The first is called an accompanier. This is a person who facilitates learning by providing information, sources, contacts. Your librarian is a great one to be an accompanier. Sometimes your boss is willing to do that. Sometimes we call them mentors. The key is that they are willing to assist you in your learning, and they actually see that perhaps their own success is improved through your greater learning. The second is to find a fellow seeker who mirrors the primary seeker, you, and is willing to engage in conversation and think critically and appreciatively. They're like a buddy. The third is the practice partner. A practice partner both challenges and supports simultaneously. They are trusted colleagues who value you and your desire to stay fresh. They are so trusted that you feel comfortable making mistakes in front of them. And they are curious themselves. They have no hierarchy in this role as a practice partner, by the way. They give you time to finish your sentences, and in a way, they act as questioners of the topic to help you articulate what you know. But one of the biggest contributions is that their questions help you see any assumptions that have been blocking your greater understanding. Assumptions are often the real barrier to seeing a different perspective. I think it is one of the greatest benefits that a practice partner offers you. In addition, they're willing to learn with you. You know, good teachers are accompaniers, and great teachers are like practice partners. Really great practice partners are willing to even reverse the roles. The one option that gets the most reaction and positive feedback to me when people read the book is the practice partner. So many people have come to me after reading this and they tell me they now know why they choose to talk with other people, particular people. They're experts in their fields, yet are willing to serve to question and listen as you work through your own learning. There are three qualities for a good practice partner. There's a level of trust between you and your practice partner. Second, there is a willingness on the part of the practice partner to suspend judgment. So you can make mistakes, you can do stupid things. That's not their job to judge you. Their job is to listen and ask, listen and question. And a practice partner has reason to see you succeed because they value what you do. It's a very interesting role. It turns out I play this for many people, and I have many people who do the same for me. In fact, in writing this piece, I started listing the pieces. I started listing the people I use as practice partners. The list became much longer than I anticipated, so I will not burden you with the list. But in that process, I realized that I have a group of people who are willing to be practice partners, even to each other. It turns out that I run a book club, and I have done so for more than 20 years. There are 10 members with occasional additions and those who must leave. Okay, so this is a little bit of movement. We meet once a month virtually for 1 hour. In that hour, we talk about the books each of us has read, and then we discuss some topic related to the book. And over the hour, we can usually talk about 3 books. There's no requirement that we all read the same book, absolutely none. It all comes from our own individual reading. I've even talked about the lessons for a person pursuing a career that I learned from a Dr. Seuss book. And if you haven't read Oh, the Places You'll Go, I suggest you go get a copy and read it. I give it as a graduation present to every high school graduate. They kind of roll their eyes at me, and then I tell them, read it. It's just a wonderful book. Lots to learn in it, and very inspiring. Well, that's what our book club is all about. And, you know, I've been thinking about this, and I didn't realize it was 20 years, but it has been 20 years. Okay, the only requirement is that members come with their minds ready to learn. And we ask each other questions. We share what we know about the topic, perhaps another book that would be of a useful reference. We think out loud, and we listen to each other with no requirement that we come to the same conclusion. It's actually one of the highlights of each month for me. Practice partners, a simple way to learn more and a way to build trusting relationships of friendship. Perhaps you already have a practice partner. I suspect you do. As one reader shared with me, I already know who he is. And by using this model, we can help each other get even more from our relationship. So who are already your practice partners? Who might you invite to become one with you? Writing the Current by Madelyn Blair. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and learned something new. What might you begin doing as a result of hearing about Rob's system? And I loved his final admonition. Just start doing it. But let me know by sending me an email. Thank you. And if you're on YouTube, I always ask you to click the like button, subscribe. And by the way, putting a comment in is very helpful as well. I will read them and I'll comment back if you like. It helps me and it helps all of us find the kinds of information that we're looking for. I'm Madelyn Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilient leader.